So we're kind of getting into the territory of decks that people don't like playing against. As far as my decks go, um, I've kind of had to stop playing this deck in certain play groups. It's not crazy combo deck, nothing like that. It's just efficient, and for whatever reason, people have a hard time dealing with this deck. So, Rune of the Hidden Realm, he's really a flash type deck, and his main goal is to just extract the most value he can out of cards by recurring ETB triggers, and rescuing things from combat. So here we have Restoration Angel, kind of thematically appropriate for Rune. Pretty straightforward. Flash, blink a creature, blink a non-angel creature. She's pretty good. Sunblast Angel, this card I would rate as subpar, but I've really just had so many good experiences with this card that I haven't been able to bring myself to take it out of the deck. It's 6 mana, it's only a 4/5. So on paper it doesn't seem that good, but in practice it's been insane amounts of value for me and really kept people from killing me when otherwise they would have. So Angel of Finality, this card is very, very meta dependent. This card could easily come out of the deck and I probably wouldn't even see myself lose any more games than I already do, or win any more games than I already do. So that's an easy cut if necessary. Let's see. Deadeye Navigator. I do run like Deadeye Navigator, Peregrine Drake in here. Yeah, I know. It's kind of scummy. But, I think 2-card infinite combo to kind of, especially in a deck that's like more slow, I think it's important to be able to win the game somehow. And the deck doesn't really have any way to win outside of like a couple combos. Unless you want to like really sit around for a really slow attrition-y game, which is miserable. So Time Warp is in here because, Time Warp plus Eternal Witness plus Rune equals infinite turns. It's pretty good. Woodland Bellower, he can search up so many cards that are good. I would say he's an auto-include in this deck without question. He'll search up Ewit, he'll search up Night of Autumn, he'll search up Rift Sweeper if stuff gets exiled. He searches up like Peacekeeper. So this card is just like all around. I was gonna say all around star, but then I should have just said all star. Reviarch, Reviarch combo is cool, but even more importantly, Reviarch, just the amount of value you get off of it when it leaves the battlefield from like Rune or like Conjurer's Closet, for example. Like Reviarch is just an insane value card in this deck outside of any possible combos that it could be used in. So yeah, strongly recommend running Reviarch. Stronic Resonator, it's a cool card, and honestly, I haven't really been able to maximize its use just because until the mid to late game, mana just isn't really there. So like, I don't know, it's good, but it doesn't quite I would much prefer if it was like a 4-mana artifact that allowed me to just passively copy triggered abilities of creatures when they enter the battlefield, if you know what I mean. Alchemist Refuge, so that card's fantastic. Let me go back to it. Some people might not know this. It allows you to cast non-land cards as though they had flash whenever you activate it. This card's dumb. Like, good dumb. I love it. People forget you have it out. Surprise blockers. But the thing is, it's cast non-land, not just like creatures. So you can get all sorts of like shenanigans coming off that card, like instant speed board wipes. I'm always a big fan of. Bramble Sovereign, and I'm not even exaggerating, I have not once used this card in this deck. Every single game I've had this card, it's just sat in my hand. I've always had something better to do with my mana. So do I think it should be in the deck? I don't know. It definitely makes some nice value, and it can copy your opponent's creatures for them, which is like useless. So I don't know. I think he could be nice, but in terms of like, are there creatures your opponents might not want to have 2 of that could be bad for them? I suppose. But I think, you know, his main value is really just in you creating, you know, tokens for yourself. But I still just haven't found enough creatures in the deck where it made sense to do. Swords of Plowshares. Brago. So he's awesome. He's not really abused that much in this deck. That's probably not an accurate statement. He doesn't get abused in this deck as much as he does in a Brago deck that is built around him with mana rocks, and, you know, pure stacks, right? But he does get to recur a lot of ETB triggers, so he provides a lot of value, but he definitely does not, you know, he doesn't get abused as much as he would. He does get targeted immediately, and he's a really good way to get the whole table turn on you. So probably don't play him unless you're ready, you know, to turn it into Arch Enemy Commander. Gilded Lotus, it's good. It works nicely with Brago. The deck itself is very mana hungry, so putting 5 mana into a 3 mana per turn investment is definitely worth it. Illusionist Bracers is another kind of one of those slow cards where I really don't end up using it a lot, even though on paper it's good and it seems cool. Like, you equip it to Roon and like you activate Roon, and then like you can pay, like you can, like, it just copies the ability right away. But like the problem is, like, Roon oftentimes needs to be protected by Lightning Greaves immediately, and so I typically don't have a window to equip the Illusionist Bracers before doing so, because I don't always have them at the same time. And then I kind of don't want to unequip the Bracers, unequip the Greaves to equip the Bracers. So is he bad? Is it, you know, is it a bad card? No. It just doesn't, in, you know, practical, you know, real life applications, it definitely does not work as well as I'd like it to. Selesnya Signet, I kind of skipped over it. Eerie Interlude. So I'm a big fan of this card. You know, obviously it helps you escape board wipes. It recurs all your ETB triggers on creatures. There's really not much to dislike about this card. Ghostway, of course, is another one. I'm just waiting on Ghostway to get a reprint. Lightning Greaves, I, you know, kind of already explained that it's in the deck. It's really good. Farhaven Elf, if it didn't put it into play, I wouldn't bother. It's good. It's, you know, I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's definitely good. You know, obviously. So here I have Panharmonicon. So this is a it's a 4 mana artifact that causes triggered abilities to trigger an additional time. You know, so it's really good. It's one of the best cards in the deck. And I think I like it a lot more than Strionic Resonator, honestly. So I may cut the Resonator, but for now, I think I'll leave it. Eladamri's Call, seriously, it's a good card. Get one if you don't have it. Instant speed, creature search, or creature tutor, plus it goes into your hand instead of onto the top of your deck where it can get tucked away or milled or whatever. Eternal Witness, of course, one of the best cards in the deck, without even, like, no contest on that one. Brutalizer Exarch. So part of me just likes the card because of the artwork. It's just this like faceless thing with giant buck teeth. But if you're in a game that you really need to like slow roll, like get someone out of it, this one allows you to tuck non-creature permanents, which, yeah, that means lands. So I mean, you can really, you know, if you got some opponent that you just really want to tilt, you know, this card's it's a tilt-a-whirl for that one. You can search for a creature, put it on top of your library. So if you can, you know, do it at the end of your opponent's turn before your turn, it's pretty good. But otherwise, you know, you mostly just can use it to tuck stuff. Peacekeeper is, I mean, look, it's an insanely good card. In this deck, it's even better, of course, because you could just skip the upkeep cost of it if you wanted to. So at the beginning of your opponent's end step, activate, you know, Roon or something else, that would make it come in at the beginning of the next end step, and, or, you know, like during your opponent's end step, I should say, to activate. And then, yeah, he'll be gone until the end of your turn, and you could attack during your turn, and then everybody else can attack during the turns in between. Really easy way to make your opponents mad, and it's great because even though they're mad, they can't really do much to you. He's also on the reserve list, so they're kind of cheap right now. May not be a bad time to pick him up. Lavinia, she's in here, and she's another one of those cards that I've maybe played like once. She's not bad. It's just like I'm typically already doing so well that I really don't need to play Lavinia. So I like her, but I don't know how much you really need her. I'm just putting this out here because it looks really nice, and of course it's an arena promo. So it's cool. Yeah. Be jealous. Hokori, Dust Drinker. This is like one of those scumbag cards. Especially since you can make him leave play with Roon, during your opponent's end step, so that you get to untap on your turn and nobody else does on their turns. Obviously, they get to untap one land. So, yeah, it's fun. It's not fun, actually. That's not true at all. Fierce Empath. You can use it to like search for Woodland Bellower, and then use the Woodland Bellower to search for other 3 CMCs, so you can kind of get a little tutor loop going. So it's good, certainly. There's enough cards in the deck that are high enough CMC to warrant playing it, in my opinion. Solemn, he's great, honestly. Just one of the staples of EDH that you should be playing. Pilgrim's Eye is fine. It searches for a basic instead of just a land, puts it into your hand, so it's pretty weak from that aspect. It is a flyer that chump blocks against other flyers, so it's kind of not a great reason to put it in here. And Farhaven Elf, is obviously better because it puts it onto the battlefield tapped instead of into your hand. So Pilgrim's Eye I'm kind of on the fence about. Karmic Guide, Karmic Guide plus Reviarch equals, well, fun or not fun depending on who you are. I think it's necessary to have in the deck just because the ETB trigger allows you to reanimate creatures. And this deck doesn't have a lot of ways to reanimate creatures, and creatures in this deck do tend to get killed. This is, of course, a nice shiny forest from, the art is actually Ice Age, and it's an arena promo. Rift Sweeper, I think, is a must. So he helps you get stuff that was exiled by your opponents. But also, whenever you remove something from the game, if you can stack the ETB triggers correctly, or if you can just stack your triggers correctly, you can make it so that Rift Sweeper shuffles away their exiled permanent rather than having it come back into play. So it's worth having in the deck. Wow, that's a lot of lands in a row. Gotta shuffle that up. Cultivate, pretty good card. Standard land ramp. I don't even know why I have a Conspiracy 2-1 in here instead of just the original one from Dissension. But Coiling Oracle card's insane value in this deck. Rule of Law, great way to make people angry. And again, it's a great way to make people angry and unable to do Storm and stuff against you. And again, guess who hates Cascade? Me. Wall of Blossoms. So it's card draw. It's kind of all you use it for, but it's card draw. So Knight of Autumn, probably one of my favorite cards from whatever set, the Guilds of Ravnica, I think. Yeah. So life gain is kind of relevant. I know you'd think it wouldn't be. It's EDH, but it is. And oh man, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I was running Harmonic Sliver in here before, and they literally just made a better Harmonic Sliver that's not a sliver, but is better in so many ways. So Knight of Autumn, fantastic card. Really, really like it. Eldrazi Displacer. So it's a great card, but you do have to remember it requires colorless mana, specifically in addition to 2 mana of any color. So you got to make sure you have some lands in the deck that are capable of producing colorless mana. So, Pain lands are a good place to look for that. The Eldrazi Displacer blinks things, instant speed, and returns them to the battlefield tapped creatures, specifically. Fiend Hunter. The reason Fiend Hunter is in here, of course, is because of the way you can stack the triggers and permanently exile cards your opponents control. or permanently exile whatever he had targeted to exile, rather than have it come back in at the end of the I'm sorry, whenever he leaves the battlefield. Seaborn Muse, in a deck that you're going to be wanting to blink stuff as much as possible using mana and cards that tap to do it. Seaborn Muse is extremely important in this deck. Back in the day, I was running Prophet of Krufix, but it got banned, and honestly, I'm not going to complain because that card needed to be banned. No question about it. Peregrine Drake, it's mostly just in there for value, but of course it does combo with Deadeye Navigator. Clever Impersonator, love this card. This card is so good. So the amount of things that I've copied with this, I just can't even begin to count. Clone effects, when you can recur their ETB targeting, is really nice, and it's actually as not ETB targeting, but whatever. Mist Metal Witch. So this is definitely one of those cards that, in my opinion, is kind of weak. 4 mana to do it is a lot. Is it good? Yeah, it's good, but I very rarely play this card. And if I do play it, I very rarely activate it. Worldly Tutor, pretty straightforward. Sorcerer creature put on top. Thragtusk, he's been in and out of the deck a lot. The gaining 5 life is nice. Making creatures is nice. But like, he kind of sits in my hand a lot. The 3/3s are good. I don't know. The only time I ever need him really is against life. Like decks that are somehow making me lose a lot of life. Obviously, I mean that's kind of a stupid thing to explain, but still, he just I don't know. He's only good in certain cases, and typically in those cases he's not like good enough. Leyline of Anticipation. So yeah, I didn't anticipate this getting reprinted. I'm pretty mad about it. It's worth like $3 now, so at least the new ones are. It's a great card though. I mean, it's a really great card. I would definitely recommend getting it if you don't already have it, because I'm pretty sure its price is still sitting at like bottom. This coupled with Seaborn Muse is going to be Prophet of Krufix, so you should run it. Just more of these. I actually been passing a bunch of them, but I wanted to show each different type. Swiftfoot Boots. So I like this card, except for the fact that I've never actually played it. It always sits in my hand. I'm sure it's good. No max hand size is awesome. But unfortunately, it's just never made it into play. This goes infinite with like, sorry, it gives you infinite ETB triggers with like Restoration Angel and stuff. So that's cool. Then you just have to figure out what you're going to do with it, like the infinite triggers, because I don't think I have anything that I could do with it, but maybe I do. Who knows? Foil Grand Coliseum, it looks nice, so look at it. Yeah. Flooded Grove, blah blah blah. Swan Song, it's a staple in any deck that has blue in EDH. Muldrifter, it's fine. I honestly don't know if there are better options now, but certainly when I built this deck, this was pretty much best in class for card draw. For those who don't know what it does, when it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. You can also pay 2 colors and 1 blue to evoke it. And evoke it basically means you play it for its evoke cost and it's sacrificed when it comes into play. So you can pay 3 mana to draw 2 cards, basically, if you want. Or 5 and then get to recur it. Venser, Shaper, Savant. Awesome card. I remember playing with him in Standard back in the day, and he was like an absolute house. Even still, he can return a spell or permanent to its owner's hand, and he's got Flash. I love him. You know, being able to blink him with like Deadeye Navigator, and stuff with like infinite mana with Deadeye Navigator, is just so frustrating for people. And he's just a lot of value. I mean, you can keep blinking him and returning permanents. I do run Minamo, and I think you should consider running some sort of untap effects in here. I probably could run more, but I don't. But I think this one's like the least invasive one, because, you know, it slides right into your mana base and provides you blue, which is still relevant, and you can, you know, use it to untap Roon. Mystic Snake, same deal. You can use it with Deadeye Navigator and Peregrine Drake to counter all your opponent's spells for the rest of the game. Assuming, you know, you have the mana to activate it and stuff. So Mystic Snake is pretty good, and just being able to, you know, surprise counter somebody's spell, you know, counter someone's spell and then have a surprise blocker is both good. Wood Elves, they're, you know, it's better than, you know, this one's also better than the Pilgrim's Eye. You know, like most of my mana search guys are better than Pilgrim's Eye. Is kind of the recurring theme here. I like him, Azor, or Azor, the Lawbringer. So I've only used it once, but when I did use it, my opponent just scooped, because they couldn't, you know, cast instant or sorcery spells for the rest of the game because I could blink it. I never got to use his pay X ability, but I think it's awesome. This card, like, I really like this card from like a design perspective, or like a, you know, like a lore perspective, because, you know, this card is just so pure Azorius. I mean, you know, obviously, like, the name is kind of a hint, but, you know, disregarding that, it just does everything, you know, that you really would want an Azorius card to do. Like, you know, drawing you life, gaining you cards, messing with your opponents, stopping them from doing things. I mean, it's just, it's fantastic. So, you know, just from a design perspective, I really love it. I don't know why this is in an Ixalan. That's Ixalan. So it's a little weird. I obviously, you know, I don't pay attention to the story or lore or anything, so I assumed this was from a Ravnica set, the new Return to Ravnica set. I thought it was from that. Apparently it's not, so I guess I look stupid or sound stupid now. Regardless, I would still make the argument that this is a pure Azorius Guild card, and any, you know, placement in Ixalan is either intentional that I don't know from a lore perspective, or like they were just wrong and should have printed it in Return to Ravnica. So anyway, awesome card. Seriously, love it. Phyrexian Metamorph. Great card. You know, you can copy things. It's kind of like the other clone card. You can copy artifacts, so, you know, strongly recommend that. Ancient Tomb, I think, is worth calling out just because it does add the 2 colorless. So, you know, in terms of lands, it's slightly better than other lands. Acidic Slime, awesome card. You know, there's other things you could use instead, but overall, it can blow up everybody's lands, which can end the game pretty quickly. Sundial of the Infinite allows you to end the turn, and prevent things from returning at the beginning of the next end step. You can only do it on your turn, but it's a really good way to permanently exile things that you blinked. So I would recommend running it. Congregation at Dawn, you know, is a tutor. Really good tutor. You get to put them on top in any order, so, you know, pretty straightforward card. Really awesome. Venser, the Sojourner. He's probably one of the best Planeswalkers to have in here. I haven't checked the new Teferis. I believe at least one of the new Teferis will be good in the deck, so I'll have to see. But, you know, +2, exile a permanent you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's just, he's just lots of value here. I have ulted this card a lot of times, and typically when you ult it, you win the game, because you get to exile permanents whenever you cast a spell. Kodama's Reach. New Kiora, I like her. She untaps a permanent, so you can use it to untap like Roon to get double effects, or like, I don't know, there's like she can just untap enough stuff. You could untap like a Gilded Lotus. Like she's got pretty good value in that, I guess. But really, it's just the fact that whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you can draw a card. That's really nice. Since most of the cards you're gonna recur, at least probably a third of the cards in the deck have power 4 or greater and are gonna, you know, just allow you to draw a lot of cards. Prime Speaker Zagana, same deal. It's card draw. Awesome. You know, nothing wrong there. Glenelendra Archmage. This card is just, you know, pure abuse on a stick. You just keep blinking her, keep sacking her, keep blinking her. You know, persist triggers get cleaned. Or, you know, the persist counters get cleaned. And you can basically lock an opponent or multiple opponents out of the game by recurring this card. And then, of course, we have Terastodon. And he's awesome. He destroys non-creature permanents and then gives your opponents elephant tokens, which, of course, you can blink away and permanently get rid of. Yeah, so the deck doesn't actually have the infinite combos in it for Reveillard Karmic Guide. It just runs them both for value, which is fine. It works really well. Overall, the deck is, you know, it's really strong. I mean, Roon, as a commander, he gets killed almost all the time, so you end up having to rely on the deck to run itself, which it does a very good job of. You know, as soon as you can get Peacekeeper out with some way to back it up, it's pretty tough for your opponents to win the game from that point on. You know, I love the deck. It's definitely a slower deck. It can be really frustrating for people to play against because it is slow, and it is very oppressive. So, you know, I typically only take this out against people that I know, you know, are running either, you know, better decks or like against people who can maybe get around a Peacekeeper and aren't just completely shut down by it. Like if it's a deck that's just all creatures and they can't do anything else, like an elf deck or something that typically struggles to do more than, you know, attack with creatures. I know they can do more, but like I typically wouldn't play this against it just because it's kind of hosing them then. But yeah, so awesome deck. You know, I think Pilgrim's Eye is the weakest card in the entire deck, and I would definitely consider taking it out. I just haven't figured out what I would want to put in instead. Maybe one of the new Teferis if they're good. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and, you know, have fun with Roon.